And somewhere
Live streaming is on.
There we go. We finally got the live stream set up. So we should be recording, and everybody should be able to find this properly as long as I've got the stream key right. Welcome to the November meeting of the Baton Rouge Astronomical Society. Tonight, our guest speaker is lovely lady and former president of the club, Melanie Templet, who is here to discuss how do you pronounce that? Chaco Canyon, which is a dark sky site out there in New Mexico, and the envy of everybody that spent much time down in the swamp, having their lenses occluded by 10 o'clock at night because of the dew problem, the D word. So without further ado, let's hand it over to her and see what she has to say and watch her wonderful presentation.
Awesome.
Elly.
Good evening, guys. I was you talking about the dew. I don't even know where my dew shield is right now. I've got one. It's probably in storage someplace.
I have words for you on that one. Jesus, I've learned how to use a hair dryer in the field. I hate the dew so much.
A little strip of heaters, you know. It's like, yeah, I used to have all that stuff, and I have no idea where it is. We've been out here for 20 years, and no telling where stuff is.
I don't hate you. I don't hate you.
You guys are so welcome to come out and play with us anytime. Hopefully next year you guys can come to Alcon, which will be a shameless plug in just a little bit. For our thing.
We're all going to camp out in your backyard.
Hey,
we're
totally,
I've got
totally
a tent.
Fine. We can hook you guys all up at the observatory. It'll be great. Oh my God.
That'd be fantastic. It'd be just like the scouting trips back when I was a child, and we'd go camp in some church. Only it's an observatory now.
Put you all on the floor of the Museum of Natural History. God.
Hey, it was fine when I was 12. I'm sure it's still fine.
Right, and the cool one would be the museum down in Alamogordo where Hal, the space chimp, is buried. It's just like, yeah, they tell the kids that it's Hal, and whenever the museum makes noise at night, that it's Hal waking up. It's pretty fierce. God, but no, I got a chance to talk to you guys this evening about one of my favorite places on Earth. It's Chaco Canyon is kind of our nomenclature thing, but it's really the real name of it is Chaco Culture National Historical Park. It's a national park. So if you have that little pass that gets you into national parks all over the world, all over the country, you can get into our Chaco Canyon. If I had known that archaeoastronomy was a thing as a career, which it probably wasn't back in the 00s when I went to school, back when rocks were still soft, I would have been an archaeoastronomer instead of a teacher and a librarian, because this to me is kind of an amazing place. It is kind of nestled in the kind of straddles the Four Corners area. Mount Taylor here is what I can see Mount Taylor from my house. It's about 70 miles from my house due west. Albuquerque is like over here on this map. And so here's Chaco culture. And then there's the Aztec ruins and the Salmon ruins. And just there's tons of every little dot here is a settlement in the Puebloan culture. We used to call these people Anasazi, but Anasazi is the Navajo word for ancient enemy.
Hold on a sec. Are you still on I'm still showing you as seeing the Chaco Culture National Historic Park and Archaeoastronomy slide. Yeah. Are you still on that slide?
I'm still on there. Can you see my little red dot too?
Cannot. Are you sharing your entire screen or just the web page?
I was just sharing that window.
Okay, that's it. That shows you going. Okay. I just want to make sure you're not frozen.
Yeah, no. Okay. Let me get back to that again. I was trying to be fabulous, and let's see. Hang on, I'm so confused. I do Zoom every day, all day long, and so it's little bit same but different.
Yeah, there's slight nuance differences, and if you're used to one, it's like driving a car with the brake and the gas reversed.
Can you see my little red dot now?
Don't see the red dot.
No red dot laser pointer. Okay, I will turn that guy off then because I was using that as kind of a guide, but it's okay. I won't do that. Cool. Chaco, this is actually a picture from space of Chaco, and Chaco Wash. The little ribbon that runs down through it is a little river that I'm certain the people that were there used to help with their irrigation as they were using living down there. And this is kind of a close-up picture of that Pueblo Bonito in Chaco culture. It's 33 square miles of pretty much what looks like on this picture. They have done dendrochronology on the vigas that are inside all the structures and found out that a lot of the same weather patterns that we have right now were in place at that time. So they had a pretty fierce existence when they were living there. It wasn't, bonbons and chocolate and everything. It was a very minimal existence. But this green little ribbon that runs down through it is the Chaco Wash. There are like I said, there are 33 square miles. There are 12 excavated ruins and tons. They've done ground penetrating radar all over the canyon, and there's foundations, there's ruins that have yet to be excavated that they're kind of leaving there, for future generations to be able to kind of go through and study. But 12 of the ruins have been fully excavated, and we are able to go through and kind of see them. Basically what happens is Chaco was considered and is called America's Stonehenge because of all the astronomical alignments in the canyon. If you go to Chaco today, the thing that has changed the least in this canyon is the night sky. If you took one of the ancient Pueblo people that lived back there, they wouldn't recognize the canyon due to all of the, there's just the ruins of what they used to live in. But the night sky is almost exactly as it was back in the day. The heyday of Chaco Canyon was about 700 AD to about 1200 AD. So think about that time period in England. That's, early, the Middle Ages. And so there was a lot of technology going on back in Europe, and America was basically in the Stone Age at this point. There were no horse and no wheel at this time. The Spaniards brought the horse and the wheel to them as they came through. This piece of landscape right in the middle of this picture is called Fajada Butte, and the thing to the left of it is Chakra Mesa, Chaco Mesa kind of thing, and it's got this ruins all up on top of it as well. When you're looking at this photo, it's a time-lapse photo taken by Tyler Nordgren, who is a National Geographic photographer who has spent quite a lot of time in Chaco. The light domes that you see coming up with the clouds are not the sunset. They are Crown Point and Through, two towns in New Mexico that are to the west of Chaco Canyon. In 1991, they've done
Melanie,
surveys.
the slideshow is stopped again. You're still on page 1.
No, there's no thing. Why does it do that?
It's still showing. Yeah.
Is it moving now?
Hold on. Yeah, it's just a difference between the types of screens that you share. You have to share either your complete screen versus that's moving.
Let me
So that it moved to the sky shot now.
That is so strange.
And now I'm seeing your cursor.
Still there? Is it still there?
Yeah, right now I'm looking at the photo by Tyler.
Tyler Nordgren. Is it moving?
No, it was a second ago.
Weird. Okay. Actually, we'll just do it like this. Then this makes it happier. Can you guys see the slide now?
Yeah, we can see the slide, and we can see your
my cursor.
Yeah, your cursor is now active.
We'll make it roll like this then. We'll play like this. Did you guys see this picture?
Nope.
Okay, this is Chaco Canyon. This is the little Chaco Wash along in here, and here's Pueblo Bonito from the top of the mesa. So that was what I was talking to you guys about a little bit earlier with the 12 excavated ruins. Here's back with Tyler's picture. These little spots here are not the sun setting. They are light domes over Crown Point and through to the rest of the city, to the rest of Chaco. In 1991, they had it designated as a dark sky place and made the night sky a natural resource. So basically, what that has done to Chaco Canyon is stopped the development in these cities that are around. They've discovered, I think it's 13 light domes as they do a 360 in Chaco, and they've decided that nope, there was too much pollution, light pollution coming into the canyon. So they, after the study, they had the National Park Service declare the night sky as one of the natural resources. So it's, it's pretty well set as it is right now. in Back in, times over time, when the rain comes, which doesn't happen much, our yearly total for rain is 9 inches. In Louisiana, that's hard to fathom when you think 9 inches in 10 minutes in Louisiana a lot of times. But this was, like I said, it was pretty sparse existence. This wash can fill up to the top every now and then in the monsoon season. But so it was kind of a precious resource for them to be able to use in the canyon as they were going through. Um, as they were looking at the different places around the canyon, they found these on the edges of the mesa, these stairs hewn into the side of the mesa.
Wow.
No handrails, nothing to be able to get down into the canyon safely. And I'm looking at this going, all right, they walked from the mesa and then climbed down into the canyon. So, why were they this determined to get into this canyon area? A lot of the crystal carriers kind of people say that there are ley lines that run across the canyon, and there's sonic resonance and all this stuff in the canyon. And so there's this big fight between the Native Americans and the crystal carriers, because the crystal carriers think the canyon was there for them, and the Native Americans know that it's much older than the crystal carriers in Pueblo time. But again, why did they climb down these stairs so much? It was basically, the center of their culture. So it was walkable for everyone if they were going to have any sort of ceremonial meetings, kind of things. My friend, who's an archaeologist, said that if archaeologists don't know what happened there, they just say it was for ceremonial purposes. So maybe this is what's going on here, that we've kind of added to this thing. But with the structures that are in this canyon, that there was definitely a reason to be there. It was not just because they thought it was kind of cool, because they had to carry everything into this canyon to build. When they were building the buildings, the vigas had to be carried. Do you guys know what vigas are? In New Mexico, it's like Smith, for a word. A viga, whenever you've got a Pueblo building or an adobe building, vigas are those great big pieces of wood that hold up the ceiling. And so if they, when they were carrying these vigas down into the canyon, they carried them from 70 miles away, basically in Arizona, and carried them over into the canyon, because they weren't the big trees that they needed to be able to build the structures in this canyon. So this was not, a very lightly taken task whenever they were working on building this structures and these structures in this canyon. One thing, whenever I moved out here, I didn't realize how much um in Louisiana we have a flat horizon. We have nothing to kind of watch the movement of the sun along, except a tree that in the next hurricane would possibly get blown down. So in Chaco, which and out here in the west, we have a very varied horizon. And so as you are looking at the sun travel along the sky, solstice, equinox, and solstice, and then back, you've got a very unchanging horizon that you can sit there and kind of mark along and use as a calendar. These folks, back in the day, back in the 700s to 1500, I mean 1200s or so, they thought that as they if they didn't do these ceremonies correctly in this canyon, that the sun was going to keep on going, as it moved down the horizon, because it sits there, and solstice means sun stands still. So what they thought was happening in the two solstices They thought that the sun was standing still and kind of judging them and how they walked on the earth at that point. How they, in the past 6 months, did they treat the earth correctly? Did they, did they do things that they were supposed to be doing? And if the sun has deemed that it was fine, then the sun would start to come back and stand still again 6 months later. So they used, this is actually a picture of the horizon in Chaco Canyon with the sun coming up in the east. So they were able to use, the canyon to be able to kind of mark a calendar out to see, all right, solstice here, equinox where the sun is moving its quickest. We've got 3 more months before we're on either side of this time again. In the wintertime, it's the historical low is 18 below zero in Chaco, and they had, of course, no indoor heating and things like this. So they were very, very. It was a very, very cold place, and in the summertime it can get over 100 degrees, and so it's not a very comfortable place to go vacation. Um, for stuff. But it was, and I think it was kind of as we go and talking about different things, it was a place where they gathered to kind of do these ceremonies and talk about how things were progressing along in their lives. We have several Pueblo tribes out here. This is a picture of a Zuni sun priest, kind of basically someone that would have been in Chaco to be able to kind of see where the sun was traveling and see how things were going and kind of keep track of time. Because if you've got 100 degrees and 18 below zero, you want to make sure that you have done the harvest correctly, done the planting correctly. Otherwise, your whole society is on the way out if you don't do things in the right time period. You've got no Walmart to be able to run down and purchase stuff. You've got to be able to make sure that your group of people are going to be able to live and function for the next bit of the year. This is Fajada again, kind of another view of Fajada. Fajada means belted in Spanish. And if you notice right along here, there's a line of like black charcoal right along that the belt of, which was why the Spaniards named it Fajada when they came and found this canyon. When you look at this kind of view of Fajada, you can see there was a structure here, kind of where like the sun priest would have sat to watch, the horizon and the view. There's also, if you take a look, the way the structure is all around the edge of this piece of this butte on the ground. If you look right here, this is purposely made. It's very straight as opposed to all these funky little erosions. When they did the excavations and looking around here, if you take this and draw a line up here, there was actually a ramp that brought it up to Fajada here, because there's a site up here that we're going to go take a look at. There's also along right here another set of ruins. So they think that very possibly someone lived up here that be able to deal with this little site up on top of here. But this little guy would have been in charge of telling people, time is passing. This is what's going on. He doesn't look super excited because this was his very first day on the job, and he had apparently, as you would think, quite a lot of weight on his shoulders to be able to figure out what was going on and with his culture. The Sun Dagger is where, a lot of people, if you've heard anything about Chaco Canyon, this is probably one of the more famous sites in Chaco Canyon. This little round ball is right next to the Sun Dagger. It's right on the edge of where those two pieces kind of come together. Back in late 70s, 1977, there was a lady named Anna Sofer who was an artist. She liked the petroglyph art in the Native American culture, and so she was running around doing a kind of a survey of the Chacoan art, and it was about 2 weeks after summer solstice, and she was up on top of Fajada and was looking at different things and kind of cataloging stuff. She knew that there was these three big rocks on top of the butte. And a little bit after lunch, she was thinking, I'm going to go eat lunch, and had gone to sit underneath these three rocks. It's not easy to get up there because, like I said, that ramp that they built is gone, and so you have to do some pretty serious rock climbing stuff to get up there. And once you get up there, there's these gigantic rocks. This guy's actually his. This is where his knees are. There's even farther down to where he's standing. Over here is where the visitor center is. So you are really high up on top of this butte. You can see all the erosion up here. And when she got back underneath these three rocks, she knew that there was these petroglyphs here. Petroglyphs are pecked into the rock. Pictographs are painted on the rocks. So there's some pictographs I'll show you in a little bit, but these are petroglyphs. There's a big spiral and a small spiral. In the Chacoan culture, and the Pueblo culture, there are a lot of spirals in stuff. So she went, underneath these rocks to be able to sit in the shade because there's not much shade. Well, actually, there's no shade up on top of the beauty except for those three rocks. The sun was shining through these three rocks. See how much there is no erosion on the backside here, just really sharp edges compared to the top of it. And what she saw, that 2 weeks later, was a thin sliver of light dagger of light coming through the rocks, and instead of being in close to the center like this one is, it was over just a little bit. And what she thought was, hey, wait a second, if this is summer solstice, this is 2 weeks later, the sun's moved a little bit. She's not an astronomer, she's actually just an artist, and so now she's become kind of a haphazard astronomer. She and I have talked many times about different things that happen in the culture, and think how do you think that they would have thought if this has happened, and and you think that the sun is going to go away every 6 months, you be a little worried, when astronomical things that we take for granted now happen. So she thought, okay, hey, this is 2 weeks later. I'm not going to say anything, but I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back in a few weeks. And so what happens was, actually, let me trade this around here a little bit because I just started thinking about it. She came, back at Equinox and saw this. Here's the little small spiral, and here's on the other side. So just to the right of both both little spirals. Then she knew that if this happens in the fall, it also is going to happen in the springtime. So then she came back in the winter solstice, and this is what she saw: the two daggers on either side. So then she came back the next year and thought, let's watch this. And so what she's on the day of the summer solstice around noontime, this is what she saw going through the spiral. This doesn't work as well whenever you don't have the slideshow going. Can you see the dagger going through it? And it goes right down through the center of the rock, in the spiral, and keeps on going until it gets all the way through the spiral. So then she told everybody. And as a result of her telling everybody, and Carl Sagan putting it in the astronomers videos, the astronomers series that he put together, everybody wanted to go up there and see it because they thought, okay, look, this is the sun dagger. It is a definitive thing. Okay, definitive. You can sit there and say, they did this. Yes, this is what it was for. But these folks had no written language, so we're assuming with what we see that this is what they meant. Now, these rocks weigh 2 tons apiece, and I don't think that they would have just kind of haphazardly moved them there. I think they probably fell there from the top of the butte, and they saw that the sun shone where it kind of shines, and they drew the rock. I really think that this was intentional, but we can't completely say this is what they meant because there is nothing saying this is an observatory, that why we did this kind of thing. But because it is so meticulously done that I'm kind of like, okay, I think that is what's happened. But because of all the publicity that this feature got in Chaco, these 3 stones slipped ever so slightly because everybody went up there and were walking around. And I don't know if you guys have ever been out to the Southwest, but all this ground down here around where the rocks are, it's like walking on ball bearings, little tiny rocks that slip and slide. And so if everybody's walking around these rocks, they actually slipped a little bit. So instead of it being a nice thin dagger like you saw go through the spirals, it is now kind of a carrot. It used to take about 20 minutes to go through the spiral, and now it takes about 40. And so the Park Service couldn't, thought a minute and said, what are we going to do? We could go back and slide them back up into place, and we could break it worse. We could leave it alone and let them slide off the rest of the mesa, the rest of the butte, or we could do what the Chacoans would have done, because there's evidence of them shoring up rocks through the canyon to protect other structures that they had built. So they went through and studied what the ancient Pueblo folk had done, and did this little backfilling area with the basically the same kind of masonry look that they have all over the canyon, and stabilize the rocks. They go up there about once every year or so and make sure that things are hanging in like they're supposed to, and they are pretty well hanging in there so far. So that's a good thing. But publicity sometimes is not a good thing. Once you get up there. A little farther down the loop in the canyon is one of my favorite places in the canyon. This is called Casa Rinconada. It is a keyhole kiva. As you can see, it kind of looks like you could use a skeleton key in the hole that makes the kiva. Um, these folks again had no horse and no wheel. They also didn't have a whole lot of technology to figure out north, south, east, and west. But these structures here are perfectly aligned north, south, and east and west. They knew enough of the sky and the transit of different things to be able to find these cardinal directions perfectly. Every structure in the canyon is lined up perfectly north, south, east, and west. And so when doing that, because again there's no written language on here again, and when you line a building north, south, east, and west, you're going to have alignments in a building naturally, as opposed to saying this is what we wanted to do with this building. So there's things in this building that archaeologists and astronomers kind of go back and forth with. Well, it was this, no, maybe it's that, so it's kind of a hard sell to be able to say, guys, this is this is definitively what it is, but we really don't know. These big holes here in the ground were the holes that held up the roof of this building. It was completely covered with vigas and dirt and stuff like this to be able to cover it in. These are foot drums. They would have either been, when you have a building that's enclosed like this in a circle, and you've got those drums, whenever you're down inside them and you stomp on the ground, it reverberates through the whole building. It was a pretty impressive thing. There's this little strip right here that you can get into from this antechamber here, and they think that very possibly the shaman would have come up out of the ground, and go, wow, look at me, and made all this really fancy ceremony type stuff in the building. We're going to visit two places around this building. We're going to visit this southern antechamber, and we're going to go visit this little hole that you see right here. There's T-shaped doors in this building too. See the shape of this door here? Oops. Hello. They think that very possibly, I mean, if you're having a ceremony, and these doors are kind of skinny, as you can see our little friend here sitting right here, it's not a very wide staircase. So if you're carrying something in, or if you're coming in feathers and you're wanting to try to really look fancy, if you have to turn sideways to get through the little skinny door, it wouldn't be the same. So I'm certain, maybe they put these wide to carry stuff into the building, not sure. Again, here's one of the vigas that I was telling you guys about, that they carried from far away. And then you can see the architecture, the masonry here. There's 28 little niches around this circular building. 28 days is the moon from full to full. And so you count a month in the 28 days. So very possibly what they think, we're not sure again, but 28 days, they could be marking the time as the month passed from full moon to full moon, to be able to say, all right, another month has passed. But you can see through this picture again by our little friend Tyler that this is through the north door, and there is the perfect north south alignment on this building. There are 7 of the 28 niches that are a little bit off center here. We're going to look at this window here again in just a little bit, and this 7th niche right here. On the mornings of the summer solstice, the sun comes through this window. And when the sun comes through this window and rises here on the horizon a little bit and comes through that window, it's another cool picture of the sun coming through that window on that morning. About 20 minutes after sunrise, you see this little square come up on the box on the wall. That's me right there on the morning of summer solstice. and it happens a couple of days before and a couple of days after, obviously, because it's the sun standing still. And so as time goes on, about 20 minutes later, the sun sits in this little box right here in that little window. Not sure again, if this is true, but if you've got a round wall, why do you poke a hole in it if the wall is already there? This is the angle that the light has to travel. Here's the window. Here's the T-shaped door on the south, and then here's where the light hits in that little niche over here. Kind of an interesting alignment of things. And when you look at this again, here's this beautiful round shape. And I understand the hole is poked in for the doors, but why do you poke a hole, for this window, unless you're wanting to make some sort of astronomical statement or some sort of statement around. This is what the building looked like when it was excavated at first. Sorry, guys, had to take a swig. There was a guy named Richard Wetherill who was an archaeologist that came through in the 30s and 40s and excavated Chaco Canyon. Their way of excavating things, which makes my skin crawl at this time, was they would dig around and throw things in the Chaco wash. They wouldn't sift things like we do now and go through very meticulously. In each one of these little niches, they're at the Smithsonian now. In the Native American collection, there was a 12-foot turquoise necklace. In one of the niches, there was a little jet frog with turquoise eyes. So there was something in each niche that we're not even sure if there was stuff all over the floor that got thrown down in the Chaco wash and washed away. So this is kind of, as you see right now, this is what it looks like now. That's what it looked like when they found it. This is a picture of that same door that we looked at just a minute ago. And here is the window, what's left of the window. They rebuilt this Kiva so much that we're not sure exactly how accurate they were when they built it. This is the rebuilt part. This is the only surviving side of this window. And so if they sat there and rebuilt this window incorrectly, they could have messed the alignment up. This on the outside here, when they excavated the building, the rubble didn't make it tall enough to be a wall high enough to cover this window. Otherwise, we're still at a loss as to why there's a window here. Again, this is another thing that, like, what the heck's that? But so they think that very possibly this could have been where the sun watcher would stand to be able to watch the sun as it came over the horizon. This is a picture of through that window to that niche. So the angle is super, super precise. This is the only surviving side. So again, the side is pretty good, but what happens? Was the window a slit? Was the window bigger? Was, we don't really know. So as they rebuilt things, they could have added a little bit of, artistic impression and messed the alignment up. But for now, it works, and it's kind of kind of another enigma that, what about, is this really what has happened to this building? Back out to the Kiva again. Here's the window we were looking at. We're going to go here next. If you look through those doors, again, you see the beauty of our horizon here. You've got this flat mesa and then a closer mesa that makes a really almost right angle through these two doors. We, on the morning of the equinox, and as you know, with equinox, the sun is moving as fast as it does through any time of the year. And so you've got this one tiny little breath of moment that the sun will shine through these doors. This is the morning of the equinox. As you know, the sun is shining through the doors. This is the day before, and this is the day of the equinox. So you can see how much the sun moves in just those 2 days, to be able to ride through that door and mark the equinox, the middle of the two solstices, which seem to be very, very important in their culture because of the issue with, hey guys, if we don't get this right, the sun will just keep on going. And it's in the wintertime, it's super cold, and if it keeps on going, it's going to get colder. And in the summertime, it's super hot. It's going to get, it's going to get higher and higher in the sky. Right directly across the canyon is a place called Pueblo Bonito. That's in the first slide. This is the back view of the structure here. Casa Rinconada is right here across the wash. This is the largest structure in the Puebloan culture. It probably was 800 rooms in its heyday. There are structures in here that we'll go through in a little while that that are kind of cool. It's not perfectly right angle to the mesa. It's cocked just a little bit, and so you can see that there are some really good reasons for it being cocked a little bit. This is what they think it looked like when it was in full operation. It was built on from the time that they started Chaco Canyon in the 700 AD area all the way to the very end. You can see as you go through the structure, very crude masonry up to very fine masonry, to where the rocks are very thin, and they're even put designs in them, different colors of rock to make the designs. They think that some of the walls were painted. I know that in Casa Rinconada, the building that we just left, there is covered up inside the circle this beautiful mural of these wild horses running. And so it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. These wild, and the one horses, it was these wild animals running, because they didn't have horses, but these wild animals running around the Kiva. And I thought that's kind of cool. But who knows what color this was painted back in the day. There was Kivas all around. They think that this was not just one structure, but more like a city of sorts, where lots of people would come, lots of different tribes would come and have their ceremonies in preparation for whatever was going to be coming up. These are two very large trash middens that are full of all kind of stuff, animal bones, pottery shards, broken sandals, just all kind of interesting things that are in these middens. The one thing that is a little bit weird is, see these four little smoke things. They don't think people lived in the canyon as a general rule. There was not enough trash, not enough cooking fires, and not enough agriculture to support as many people living in the canyon full time, as that. But there are some there are some agriculture areas where they grew beans and corn and this kind of stuff, because they can find that stuff in the canyon, and small areas of cooking fires, and relatively few burials. So if there were people that were living there 24/7, this many people living there 24/7, there would be a whole lot more human evidence in there, and there's not. In this structure here, around in this part of it, they found two burials that kind of come to mind. They were very tall compared to what the Chacoan people were. They were tall, and they were dressed in Mayan outfits. They found cages of macaw feathers. They found shells. So we know that they were traveling and trading as far down as Mexico and as far up into Colorado as well. So they found trade goods that they would have gone back and forth. The Hershey Company actually went and did a study. There are these beautiful black and white pottery jars that look like tumblers, look like tall Starbucks tumblers, for lack of a better term. They're slender, and they did scrapings on the inside of them, and they found cacao inside it. So these Mayan folk brought chocolate up to a Chaco Canyon, and they shared and had drinks in these mugs back and forth, because they were I guess, hey, here's what we brought to you. What do you have for us, kind of stuff? Because there's, in these canyons, there's these strip along here that's mica, and these beautiful pieces of quartz and all kind of stuff in here that would have been good to trade for the shells and different other things that the folks down in Mexico and further north would have had as well. Again, there's not much left of the building. This is what it looked like when Weatherwise found it. It was very full of dirt. There's I never understood wind erosion until I moved out here, and blowing dirt is not fun. It is a force to be reckoned with. And so when they found this thing, they could kind of see the outline, kind of the D structure of it, and like, okay, this is fine. You can also see that there's not the rubble that is there now. This was Weatherwise Camp. He was an interesting soul. He actually died after a horse trade gone bad with the Navajo. So he's buried a little bit past Pueblo Bonito in the canyon. But he was an interesting little soul. So this is what it looked like whenever he found it. This is what it looks like today. They excavated it out as much as they possibly could, and to be able to be and to be safe and kind of keep it, making sure that it won't go completely to ruin. This is the rubble that I was telling you guys about. There was a big old rock right here, and a smaller one is right next to it. This was the ancient Pueblo folk called this threatening rock, and the baby threatening rock was right next to it. um there was evidence back in the Chacoan culture of a wall like they built around those three rocks up on top of Fajada Butte. Then so that's where they got the idea to be able to stabilize the stuff on top of Fajada. This fell in 1941. Whenever Weatherwise and stuff were there, they were going, "Hey, this is awesome." The visitor center used to be kind of right off to the side here of Pueblo Bonito, and one morning in January they heard this amazing loud pop, and they knew that this rock was fixing to come loose because water back and forth, freezing and thawing, had loosened it to a point. So they had people out here on the road watching and taking photographs. And back in the day in 1941, it wasn't like digital photography. They ran out of film. So they were taking pictures and taking pictures and taking pictures. And they thought, oh, hey, wait, we got to go to town to get some more film. The closest town is 40 miles away. And in 1940, it wasn't the fastest cars in the world. So they drove up to Farmington and got film. And while they were gone, Threatening Rock fell. So they have pictures before, pictures after, but not during. So never take enough pictures. Never, always save a few pictures in the camera roll, which is amateur astronomer photographers. We all kind of know, hey, look, you never have enough film because there's always the one thing that oh my gosh, I want to take that picture. But so now there's this big rubble, so it kind of ruined this side of the D-shaped structure. But it's sadness. But oh well, they had pictures of it beforehand, which is good. This picture kind of shows you the outline of the building. This piece right here, because this building is perfectly north and south, this is a midday marker. This line goes north and south, so as the sun reaches its zenith and goes past, you can tell that the day has gone halfway. There is also this line right here is perpendicular, so this line is perfectly east and west. And if you notice how this line is straight, this line is straight right here, and this one here in the front over to the east kind of goes off to the side a little bit. Again, different people building long, many hundreds of years over time, but they still kept the main structure of this building. If you're out in front of the Pueblo and you look to the horizon, you're looking to the eastern horizon, you can see how the mesa kind of drops down. So you've got good landmarks to be able to mark the rising of the sun. Here's a little bit closer picture of how things, and kind of very obviously move around on the horizon. So on the morning of the equinox, both equinoxes, the sun will rise right in that first little niche. It's the very first morning that the sun rises completely in that first little niche. And in doing so, that east-west wall, the sun rises perfectly in line with the east-west wall, and then as a result will set in direct line with that east-west wall as well. So they were able to mark the equinox with this building across the canyon as well, and in the midday sun as it goes. There's another place on the eastern side of the building that is another kind of an architectural enigma, because again, you've got a hole poked in a wall where it really shouldn't be. Most windows are not in the corner of a room. This one is poked right into the corner of this room on this second floor. When you look at it, you think, okay, why do you poke a window in the second floor? There's a wall here in the front. And again, the rubble doesn't show having a wall up to the second floor, which would completely annihilate what happens with the alignments right now. You can also kind of see inside these tiny little holes. Those were the vigas that held up the roof of that first floor, and basically then I guess like a patio level for that second floor. Again, the rubble wasn't there to be able to build a wall high enough to come above that first floor. And my friend, who is one of the interpreters there, he's crazy. And on the inside of this room, he got up every morning for 2 weeks before the winter solstice. And like I said, it's not a warm time in Chaco Canyon during the winter time. And inside, if you go inside that window and kind of look inside there, there's this little thing that looks kind of like a chimney, but it's not. It's just a structure of rock in the corner. And what happens on the morning about 2 weeks before the winter solstice, the sun starts to kind of peek through that corner window. And as it goes every day for the 2 weeks, it goes farther and farther through that corner and keeps on going and keeps on going. And this was determination. Every morning he got up and took these pictures and took more pictures every morning and even more pictures because, every morning until the morning of the winter solstice. And this is where the sun stopped, right on the very corner of that little structure here inside that room. Again, no written language, no be able to say, hey, this is what we meant for this to happen. But when you've got a window poked in a place in a wall that is not really structurally sound, you kind of begin to kind of wonder and what's going on here. So this is, kind of one of the things that okay, yeah, very possibly this could have happened with these folks living there. This is a little bit farther away from where we were standing a little bit earlier. Here is the window poked into the corner of that building in that room. And there is this kind of outcropping built right here along the edge. When the Zuni and the natives that live around there, the Navajo, were asked, what do you think about this? When they got closer to looking at it, it looks kind of like an area where someone could stand outside the building. They think that very possibly this is what looks like the Zuni Sunwatching Area where they have areas built around their pueblos now for the sun watcher to get up and be able to keep an eye on the sun and how it's moving across the horizon. So very possibly this is what that was there for, for the sun watcher to be able to stand there. Because again, it was nothing, nothing taller than kind of this area was excavated. Down in a place that is hard to get to right now. It's about a 6-mile hike in and a 6-mile hike out. This is the Supernova Pictograph. Whenever it's kind of, if you notice it, you're standing on the bottom here. It's about 50 feet up in the air. Not an easy thing to see or to look at anymore. And like I said, it's a pictograph. So it is something that is actually painted on the wall instead of picked on the wall. So it's not a petroglyph, it's a pictograph. It is a crescent moon and a star or a bright object and a hand that, the actual fingers on this hand point toward the east. Kind of remember that as we go through here. There's also another kind of thing here too that we'll talk about as well. These are swallows. Swallows are a pain in the butt. Swallows come along and make their nests up underneath here. So the Park Service is constantly having to scrape the swallows off there and make them move. So they're always kind of a nuisance over there with this artwork, because eventually, if you let them keep going, they're going to cover it up. Like I said, this is on an overhang about 50 feet up in the air. What they think that this is marking, because on the morning of July the 5th, 1054, this is what rose on the horizon that morning. There's a ruin right above this pictograph. And they think that very possibly there was a sun watcher that could come down and take a look at, watch the sun rise on the horizon. When you look at this hand here, these fingers point toward the east. And if you draw the line out to the horizon, this object rose right in between those fingers. So it would have been someone saying, this is, here's the mark. Here is what I see. And this is the supernova that created the Crab Nebula in 1054. It was bright enough to be seen during the day for 30 days. It was brighter than the full moon at night. And again, remember, these guys thought that the sun was going to go away every 6 months. So if you see a brand new star that was so close that you could read by and cast shadows at night brighter than the full moon, this brand new star in your neighborhood, you take notice. It was you could see it during the evening for a long time, and like I said, during the day for 30 days you could see it. This is supposed to move back and forth. There are two pictures here, but it doesn't do that because it's not behaving correctly. But there was a pictures taken. It was a picture taken, two pictures taken 20 years apart, showing that the supernova is still expanding, which is kind of a cool thing to see that, hey, this is one picture and here's another picture. And as this was mentioned in societies all around the world. But when you've got a culture that doesn't have a written language, the only way that you could make a mark of it would have been in a picture. So as an amateur astronomer, again, you can't say, when you're saying something at the park service and doing something at the park, you can't say this is what they were marking. But as an amateur astronomer, yeah, that would have made a mark on my life, to be able to see something so different, so powerful happen in the middle of the night. This is a picture taken at the Chaco Observatory, two of them actually, and one in 1999 and one in 2005, of M51. This is the nebula, the galaxy as it was, and then here's the galaxy with a supernova. So they are fierce, fierce events in our astronomical night sky, and we know what's going on, and we're still impressed and kind of awestruck whenever they happen. I'm not real sure how frightening, because this, if you think 1054, this is toward the end of Chaco culture, because 1200 is about when the Chacoan culture was at its height, and then kind of backed off. Here is the supernova site right here, the pictograph I showed you before. There is another circular, kind of a hairy star. What happened, 1054 was the supernova. In 1066, Halley's Comet came by and rose in exactly the same place as that supernova happened. So you've got perfectly within someone's lifetime, or some apprentice's lifetime, to where that they would have been apprenticing for a sun watcher, to have seen both objects happen. And Halley's Comet apparently in 1066 was one of its brightest, most fantastic apparitions at the time. So here you've got this, amazing star show up, and then you've got this amazing comet show up. And I mean, even in the Middle Ages, comets were, portents of evil and all kind of stuff. So it's, and these guys, kind of sort of halfway knew what was going on, but these guys didn't so much at that point. But that's one of my favorite. It's a shame that it's so hard to get to, because it's one of my favorite places in the canyon that you go see as a visitor. This kind of rock outcropping is right next to the visitor center. There's this big old pile of rock here, and then there's this kind of arrow-shaped rock, there's a close-up of it right here. Back in Chaco's heyday again, this is the outcropping. Remember I showed you at the very beginning that settlement that was right outside of Fajada Butte? That is kind of over here to the right in line with this arrow rock. So you could have had someone that was there be able to go back and forth with that with this sun watching place. There's a place on the other side of this rock that I'm going to show you in just a little bit, that is kind of makes this point, makes this maybe a sun watching station. When you get up close to here, you can go into, see how it kind of, there's this little hole right here. You can go into that little area, and it becomes this little alcove. And on this flat spot here, there's a little hole pecked into the corner here, and over on this other side there's a grinding station where, say, Native Americans could have been grinding corn pollen to be able to put in the hole of this little rock out here. So possibly ceremonial stuff again, my favorite archaeological word, ceremonial practices. But what happens whenever you stand on the other side of this little rock, what happens if you're sitting there and you're so excited and so kind of hung up on the morning of the summer solstice, on the morning of, got to make sure that things are happening. What happens if it's cloudy? I mean, out here in New Mexico, it's not always cloudy, but it's cloudy right now. But it's not always cloudy. But you got to have, like in Pueblo Bonito, you've got that 2-week window where here, what they found out happens is 2 weeks before the summer solstice, the sun rises right in where this little point comes, and the edge of this right along in here. And so as the sun goes along, it climbs up this arrow-shaped rock, and on the morning of the summer solstice rises right on the tip of this little rock. So that is very possibly a summer solstice marker as well. And because of the way that this thing is lined up, this little hole here that I was telling you about, when you're standing in this little area and you look the way the camera is to where the camera is facing, you are looking at the western horizon, and the sun sets right in line with that little hole on the equinoxes. So it's all these, oh my gosh, there's so much, but once things start to kind of line up, things start to fall into place again. One thing that is on the other side of this little rock, there's the spiral thing that you stand by and you watch this little part here, but there's also this little pictograph here. There's a cute little guy. I don't know what he's doing, but he, I don't know, jumping for joy, scared to death. I have no idea. But then there's this flowery thing right here. There's also older, newer graffiti as well. But there's this, flowery looking thing. And then there's this little spot right here. And here, as a close-up of that little flowery thing. When, I'm going to go back and forth here. There was a solar eclipse in 1097. And if you take a look, here's a picture, a modern picture of the sun, kind of thing. If you take a look at the solar eclipse path, the solar eclipse passed on July the 11th in 1097. So you got 1054, 1066, and then 1097. These huge astronomical events that we all go chasing around to find happened over these people's, where these people lived. And if you take a look, it passes right over Chaco Canyon. So if you've got this pretty little, flowery thing, kind of looks like what we see even in our astrophotos. There was a guy in France that I have yet to find the picture, but in France in the 1097 eclipse actually drew a picture, or some, it couldn't have been in France if it was over this path, but there's a picture that was drawn of the 1097 eclipse that looks almost exactly like this kind of where the prominence is, and the flares were coming up off of it. You also, if you can drive the astronomical calendar back to the day of this eclipse, Venus was right here compared to the eclipsed sun. And when, any of you guys have ever seen a total eclipse, the planets and the stars come out. And so if you had this totally eclipsed sun, you would have had Venus right there next to the totally eclipsed sun. So again, no written language, but it's kind of hard to sit there and go, hey guys, I'm not so sure, but yeah, as an amateur astronomer, I kind of sit there and think, yeah, I think this is true. I think this may have been happening. There's also another celestial neighbor in our skies. They're finding alignments in Chaco Canyon in several of the buildings that actually line up with the 18-year lunar cycle as well. Again, is it because the buildings are north, south, east, and west perfectly aligned, and it just happens to happen that way? Or was it something that they thought, hey, because like I said, they were constantly adding to these buildings. Was it something that they actually, thought, hey, let's do this and let's mark this? There is a place, I don't know if any of you guys have ever been up to Pagosa Springs in Colorado. This is Chimney Rock. It is in the Puebloan culture. There were some kids that lived in Farmington that actually got up on top of the mesa next to the Supernova site, got on the mesa here at Chimney Rock, and got on the first, what the Navajo call first mesa, and they were able to use a mica mirror and be able to communicate real time between those three areas of settlements. And so they very possibly back in the day could have been a signal message way to get, almost like, Instagram kind of thing to be able, or instant messenger to be able to get, text messages back and forth to each other saying, hey guys, something's happening, or hey, this is going on. But so they actually proved that you could communicate real time. In Chimney Rock, this picture is taken from where there's the settlement. And I swear to you, getting to the settlement is not easy. There is a path that is probably 1.5 feet wide, and you walk along it, and there are sheer drop-offs on either side of it, and no handrails, which is like amazingly scary for me. But they had to carry everything that they built with up to this part, because there's nothing up there, because it's this little skinny path. And when you stand there, you see these two little structures. From the road, it doesn't look like two until you get right up to it. But these two little chimneys. And there was a guy, oh gosh, I can't remember his name now. I have his book. But he again was like Anna Sofair, saw this moonrise on one 18-year cycle when the moon was right in the right spot. And if you see the snow, I mean, it's not, this is not a warm place. This is in December of, I think, 2001, I think it was, maybe a little before that. And what he did was he didn't tell anybody. So he waited 18 years, which is patience like crazy, and came back and saw the moon rise right there again and watched it kind of move back and forth. So then he told everybody again and wrote his little book. And so there is the 18-year cycle is marked with these guys, because it is, like I said, their structure is right there just to the west of this. So it's kind of interesting to think that these guys back in the day had a huge command of their night sky. We are lucky out here. Back in the day, they didn't have what we have. They here's Baton Rouge, and the west coast and the east coast of Florida. We are kind of right about in here where this darker part is. So we are still lucky enough to be able to kind of see the sky as they would have seen it more so back in the day. We have a night sky task force out here in New Mexico. Not everybody listens to it, but we're trying to keep the sky as dark as possible out here, so we can kind of keep doing what we do at Chaco Canyon. This is their little 13-inch out there, I think is that one, and there's a 25-inch obsession in a dome that is just to the point where these guys are looking. It's kind of a nice little setup to be able to get out there and be able to view the sky. If you guys have a chance to get out here and go see Chaco, it's an awesome place. There's no drinkable water there. It's basically primitive camping a lot of times whenever you're out there. And somebody came in one time with the canyon and said, "So where's the hotel?" "Well, back about 40 miles from here." If you can't stay here at night, but there's night sky programs that run through the summertime, and they're some of the most heavily attended things in the canyon, because people love to go out there and kind of see the night sky out there. This is us now. We have an observatory with a roll-off roof. We have an open air planetarium out there that is super awesome. There are 12 benches that are 8 feet long. And in each bench is a little bit higher than most benches, so you can lean back. They're tilted backwards just a little bit. Next year, Alcon was supposed to be here in 2020, then in 2021, and now it's been moved to 2022. Our keynote speaker is Dr. Harrison Schmidt, the second to last man to walk on the moon. Our guest speaker this coming Friday for our monthly meeting is Nima Jimshadi. He is a graduate of the school that I work at, Sandia Prep, and he is one of the engineers, the aviation engineers on the Blue Origin New Shepard spacecraft. He is in mission control as they launched William Shatner and everything. So he's going to zoom in from Seattle. And the Zoom link is on our website. You guys are welcome to come in and listen to him speak this coming Friday. It's 7:30 our time, so that means 6:30 your time. The link, like I said, is on our website. This happened back in September, on September the 11th. We named our open air planetarium for Dr. Schmidt. Super, super nice man. He has helped our astronomy club many, many times. He likes, because we modeled, granted, we were born out of Rio Rancho High School, but I know that Baton Rouge does so much outreach. And when I was in Baton Rouge, I enjoyed the outreach that we did. And so we've carried that over into here, and we do things with the kids and with Boy Scout troops and Girl Scout troops and senior centers and all kind of stuff. And Jack likes what we do. And so he has helped us he has helped us monetarily. He's gotten us basically, I think, about $2,500 to $3,000 to help keep up with the programming that we do at our planetarium and observatory. Super nice friend to have, and lots of clout, basically. But that's the end of my ranting for this evening on stuff. But I love I miss Baton Rouge by leaps and bounds, but I also love our night sky out here, and it's truly, honestly, when I was in Baton Rouge and you're running through in the summertime and you go, yeah, I should be able to see the Triffid, I should be able to see the lagoon, nope, not going to happen. Out here in New Mexico, you can see the teapot and the smoke cloud where the center of the galaxy is, and you can pick out along the Milky Way basically everything as it goes along, which is kind of like, okay, now how do I stop sharing? Am I stopped sharing? Yes. Okay, good. Yeah, so it's kind of, it's yeah. It's almost jealousy making, like Scott was saying, I hate you, because you can see so much. But please come out for Alcon next year, and I'll go to Alcon the next year with you guys, so we'll just trade back and forth Alcons. You guys have any questions?
Yeah.
Weird things?
Anybody?
Yeah. Hi, it's Chris Raby. How are you doing?
Hey.
My brother was in charge of the Chimney Rock site for several years. Andrew Glenn Raby, when he worked for the U.S. Forest Service in Pagosa Springs, and he attended the moonlight rising between the peaks twice with the Pueblo Indians out there.
Yeah,
and he said it was one of the most amazing things he ever saw.
Yeah, I've attended it once. My good friend is an interpreter at Chaco Canyon, and he goes up there and he tells stories under the full moon for that thing. It's super amazing. You think, and I brought a bunch of kids out to Chaco one year from, I was teaching at the museum, and these bunch of little 10-year-old boys are like, so they were stupid. And it's like, define stupid. If I put you out here with a stick and a string and a rock, could you make yourself live out here? These people we're not dumb. They don't have the technology that we do, but we couldn't survive the way they did at that point. Their technology is just beyond what we know now.
Very cool. That was amazing. Thank you.
That's cool.
I went to Chaco a long time ago when I was about 19 years old, so I hadn't been back since.
Still looks the same.
Melanie, I have a question. When's the best time to go out there? When would you recommend visiting?
Well, Chaco Canyon, I think, is either some ancient Anasazi or Pueblo word for broken tent pole, wind tunnel, or in the springtime is not the time to go. It's better temperature, and stuff. The fall is the best. You have the most chances of clear skies, and it's just absolutely stunning out there. You got the Chaco Wash is full of cottonwood, so it's all the colors of the fall rainbow, and just nice clear skies, and it's much more comfortable on camping. The Park Service, to get there, it takes 3 hours from my house because there is a 16-mile dirt road that I'm pretty certain they could use for washboards to wash clothes as well. They don't want people to go in and out of there very often, and so they keep it, almost inaccessible, because they're afraid of the fragility of the structures out there. But I'm hoping that eventually, one day, they'll get paved. But it's, I wouldn't bring a camper, a really nice, like, big camp. I've seen people bring campers and stuff like this, and we've brought ours, and they don't survive very well, getting down the road. But if you've got a tent, there's a flush potty bathroom, there's no showers, and there's no water, so you need to bring in, what you bring in is what you need, and bring extra water, bring extra food, because if you get into that down there and you get any sort of bad weather, sometimes that road, there's the Chaco Wash goes over, that road goes through that Chaco Wash, and there's a sign that as you're 4 miles from the gate of the canyon of the park, and it says if there's water present, do not cross. And they're not kidding, because they'll take your car away. it's it's not a pretty fierce to get to still even. I have a picture of probably back in the 30s of these older cars, and they're all stuck on the road because they're the road, and they're on these, and there's these women all dressed in these nice fancy dresses and their hats, and the men, and these cars are all just kind of stuck around. It's like, ooh.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you very much for your speaking, for your talk. It was a very lovely, very entertaining. I'm suckered into it. I kind of want to go see everything and, well, yeah, just see and be there and freeze my keister off in the wee hours every 18 years to watch the moon rise from just the right angle and everything like that. Just like it's the simple idea of how much time and effort and just attention to detail went into that is absolutely amazing. And that's exactly what we're doing even now today as amateur astronomers, is just observing and writing down as best we can what we see, and logging all the observations as best we can. So to see them doing it, and not only doing it well, but doing it so well they could carve it in stone and build buildings around it, that's an attention to detail that I really appreciate.
Yeah, and we have all these gadgets that are basically helping us out. They didn't have this, and that's why I like what we do, and what BRAS does is getting it back out to people looking up again.
Yeah, and mind you, a lot of the AL programs involve sketching, doing just even rudimentary type sketches, and how difficult those can be, and how I hate them so much. But yeah, talk about the novices out there learning how to spot the sun and put the sun dagger in its spiral. Yeah, that's you don't really get to mess that up. And yeah. All right. So thank you very much. We're going to go ahead, and if nobody has any more questions for Melanie, we'll go ahead and conclude the YouTube portion of the video, and then carry on with our regular meeting.
Yep. And then shameless Alcon plug for next year. Like I said, Jack will be our keynote speaker, and one of the places that they're going to go as a field trip is the VLA, and another place that they're going to go as a field trip is our observatory.
Oh, that's awesome! Yeah, I'm definitely seeing your observatory is on the list. As I said, and hey, you may end up with a whole bunch of haggard-looking people from Baton Rouge camping in your backyard or out at the observatory one day. So if you see a bunch of tents out there, please just come say hello before you call the police.
Yes.
And
we have a nice, gigantic, grassy area that we almost had Boy Scouts staying at one time. And so, there's a great big old soccer pitch out there, so it'll be fun.
Yeah, and as I understand it, there's a swimming pool nearby too.
That is correct. That's correct. If it's summertime,
it'll be summertime, so it'll be.
And perfect. I have connections with the city since we're on city property.
Yeah, it'll all work out. I'm seeing a wonderful field trip planning, and now we just need to get somebody to charter us a bus or to steal a Winnebago or what have you. And
fundraiser.
We'll start selling stars. I think that was Kersey's idea once upon a time, is to have the public sponsor stars at the observatory, so that we can make a quick
get Craig on it. I know he's there.
Yeah. It's, instead of selling these SAOs, we'll start selling the bright ones, and that Arcturus is now the Stanley such and such. I'm sure it'll be fine. All right. So thank y'all very much for joining us tonight. And we hope to see y'all. Back in January, we won't be having the December meeting online or on YouTube because that's going to be co-opted by our 40th anniversary party. But we'll Depending on the choices made in December, we'll see whether we're back online in January, which hopefully we will be. All right. So this concludes the public portions of our video, and we'll move on to regular business. All right. Thank you.